The impudence, the audacity, the unmitigated gall of those knuckleheads of liberty podcasters, daring to voice opinions outside the mainstream of accepted thought. Listen if you dare. It's angry, it's funny, it's even sometimes sad, but it's always based on freedom and justice, as you will see. Here's our host, Jason McPhee.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty. We're coming at you on August 17th, 2022. Felt like I was having a Biden moment there. Anyways, we have a special show for you today. We get away from a little bit of the insanity of the Biden administration and talking about everything that's happening with him. Instead, we have an interview today. We're going to be talking with Gadai Bulgac, and he is a young activist for liberty. So I met him recently. In fact, maybe we could show the image real quick. I met him at the Revolution in Florida, which is a Young Americans for Liberty event. And that was a pretty fun event. Hopefully we'll have some other shows where we can talk a little more about that. But today we're going to talk with Gadai about some of the experiences he's had as a young person. Because, normally on the show, you're just hearing from a bunch of old people about how we're experiencing the world and what's happening, the reality with all of these crazy changes that have been happening. But this will be a chance for us to really talk with somebody else who has a different perspective. But before I get to that, let me introduce you to our panel. In the middle of the left side of the screen, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. In our upper left-hand corner, we have Gadai Bulgac. He is a activist for liberty, a young person. I believe. Are you still in college, Gadai? I can't remember. Okay, yeah. So you're still a college student. So it'll be interesting talking to you a little bit more today. And my name's Jason McPhee, and I'll be the host today. So, Gadai, tell us a little bit about about your journey to discovering liberty. I mean, what's gosh, this world has just been crazy, and I have kids too, and it's interesting to talk to them, seeing the way they see the world changing and stuff. So tell us a little bit about how you came around to liberty.
Well, I had an interesting journey. It all started off with the internet, of course, but I think a lot of us, like younger people, we weren't necessarily inspired by the Ron Paul movement, but we were influenced by it because of the videos that we saw that were produced by the Ron Paul movement. We couldn't vote for Ron Paul at the time, but now, we saw all those videos. They educated us on some of the concepts of liberty. And then one of the things that personally influenced me was reading Thomas Sowell's Basic Economics. I was already leaning libertarian at that point, but when I read that book, it really elucidated everything, and I was able to see that government action is not necessary in almost all situations, especially when it comes to the economy.
Have you read more of any more of Sowell's work? I mean, I have read Basic Economics also, and I think it's a very interesting book. I mean, some of my views already formed when I read that book, but you said it had a major impact upon you. Have you read any more of his work?
Yes, I've read Discrimination and Disparities. I've read, what was it? Race and Culture. What was the other one, though? Society. I think I forgot the title, but I've read a lot of his works. He's actually one of my favorite nonfiction authors, period. And so, yes, he's really impacted me.
Well, Gadai, sorry. Go ahead, Leon.
No, I was just going to say that is something that you and I have in common, because my journey to liberty, to where I am right now, started with a book by Sowell, but that was Civil Rights and Wrongs. It was a book that he wrote that really changed my thinking in many ways. I was just going to say that, Jason. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, well, Gadai, I was curious. So, yeah, I guess did you come then from sort of more of the conservative side, and was this sort of a family leaning? Because I know this is one of the crazy things for most people when they kind of get red pilled to liberty. It isn't through the school system. The school system is pretty much teaching people that hey, government's the solution. If you want to solve a problem, vote on it. That's kind of where they're going from. It's not really market driven, so you kind of have to get exposed from outside. So I guess how did you sort of start out? Were you starting out from the conservative side with your parents, and then or something else like that? I mean, what sort of what was the spark?
Mhm. Well, my parents, they were from the Soviet Union originally, and I was born in the former Soviet Republic of Moldova. My parents, they weren't necessarily conservative. They had some conservative leanings, but we were in California, and my parents, they just considered themselves Democrats because they're like, hey, that's the main party here, and therefore immigrants, therefore we're Democrats. So at the time when I started becoming interested in liberty ideas, around the time of 14 or 15, especially right before the 2016 election. I was going to an online charter school, and just researching things online was what made me become a libertarian, leaning from like being apolitical. I just started off being libertarian, and then I convinced my parents to become more conservative.
So you kind of came at it from the left then, because it sounds like, because if your parents were sort of considered themselves Democrats, then you probably consider, maybe it's just kind of interesting. One of the things I like to talk about, because it's just it may be interesting for our guests to hear how somebody really clicked on. And we've had people from both sides, people who've started out.
Yeah,
In fact, Leon,
yeah.
you started out way on the left, right? I mean, when
I
you
was
came here, you
when
were
I when
practically
I first came
socialist.
when I first came to America, I would probably be classified as a socialistic Democrat. Probably.
Okay.
No, well, I was somewhere around there. I can't tell you specifically where on that spectrum, but I was certainly on the left. I certainly was. I was raised in a country that was essentially socialistic. I mean, the father of our nation, a man by the name of Dr. Eric Williams, he was a socialist. He wrote several books about it, about socialism and its good glories and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I came from the left, and I've left that so far behind. I cannot believe that I was even there at one time. But good I what I was trying to get at here, what it is sparked your interest though. I mean, I understand that your parents were from the Soviet Union. They were somewhat left leaning. They were like Democrats because that's natural situation in California, I guess. But what it is sparked your interest to say, well, something here is not right, or I need to look further into this. What it is, what was the seed of your journey?
So I started watching a lot of left-leaning YouTubers at the time, and one of the things that really got my idea about no government not necessarily being a good thing was the Iraq War and just the wars in general. The fact that we're just going into all these countries willy-nilly. That was at the time the left was really good on that issue, on the issue of war, and
Yeah,
then that sparked my idea. Well, if it's not good to go to war, right? Then I saw these libertarian guys. Okay, we're not good on war. We should not just be against war. We should be against the government doing bad things here at home as well. So that's what really sparked my interest in that.
Hmm.
fascinating. Okay, okay.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too, because you mentioned that I guess you were from California, and then you migrated out of California a few years ago, I think it was, and you were in the Bay Area, was it? And I imagine you saw a lot of things that also helped your conversion in
Oh,
California, right?
yes, yeah. It was actually only about 10 months ago that I moved to
Oh, okay.
Texas from California. And no, the Bay, I was already very convinced by the time I was living on the East Bay, but when I started working in San Francisco, I would commute about an hour and a half. Firstly, zoning laws, regulations, all these horrible laws that make it impossible for housing to be built in San Francisco, made it so that I had to commute all the way from Antioch. So I had to drive an hour 15 minutes early in the morning to miss traffic. And then if I didn't do that, if I took the bus, for example, I would see so many homeless people, so much crime. Even when I was working in the city, that really made me not just leaning libertarian. I became full-blown libertarian at that point. I was like, the government needs, look, we need to have law and order, right? We shouldn't just allow crime to happen, but we shouldn't also have all these massive regulations. Like, California is the worst of both worlds in that sense, that it has all of the bad parts, no regulation, and all, like, in terms of like crime, like, that's what I mean. Like,
Yeah, we've got a lot of other regulation. I can tell you all about that.
But no stopping shoplifters. But at the same
Yeah.
time, you can, so you can shoplift all you want, but you'll get a parking ticket really easily, and also all these other terrible things. When I worked in San Francisco, I worked at a retail store. It was in the nicer part. It was in the Richmond district. I had a shoplifter steal a phone. I worked at a cell phone store. I steal a phone every week,
Wow.
same guy. And,
Wow.
and that's this, and that's not including any other shoplifters. So I saw shoplifting, it just became normalized, and I thought about it. Wait a second, that's not a normal thing. That doesn't happen anywhere else. That's just a San Francisco thing.
Well, not just San Francisco, through a lot of California, because literally the cell phone I just bought, like at the beginning of the year, somebody literally stole a phone right out of the store while we were filling out the contract, and an alarm went off, and the guy who was doing the contract with us went running to the door. So it was this California, it's got a lot of problems all over, but yeah, it seems to spill out of the Bay Area and just sort of migrate through the rest of the state.
I mean, there are several stores. Walgreens have left, is leaving closing certain stores because of this problem, this shoplifting problem, where anybody could walk in there, steal less than $1,000, and nobody can do anything to them, right? Or nobody is even attempting to do anything to them. And many businesses are closing or changing locations because of this very problem.
Yeah. Well, as far as your experiences in education, what's it like being a college student, or also too, if you were sort of liberty oriented when you were in high school as well? I mean, what's it like being a sort of a liberty oriented student nowadays in college?
Well, I will say, so I did a couple of college courses while I was in high school. So I've been in the college system for a while now, and starting from like 7 years ago, the college system just progressively got worse and worse. Now,
Yes.
And real quick, Gadai, what are you studying too, just for background for the listeners?
Economics. So like most libertarian students, economics or political science. Yeah. But
cool. Okay, well, yeah, you can go ahead with your story. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure our viewers kind of understood where you were coming from.
Yes, but I've literally had to write essays about wrong think, like some of those struggle sessions, like in North Korea, like I'm a guilty white male. We should allow everyone in. Just absolutely. Guns are bad, and if you didn't do that, you would fail a class. I've actually had that happen before. I had a critical writing class, and I wrote something that was about how maybe the differences in pay between women isn't because of sexism. Maybe it's just because of the decisions that each group makes individually. And then, bam! I failed the class. Miraculously.
No!
Wow! But then I found the one English Republican professor at the college that I was going to. All of a sudden, A+. I wonder why.
Well, this is a big problem. I mean, I've listened to Jonathan Haidt talk before in some of his lectures, and he talks about the liberal arts, being like a 20-to-1 ratio of people who affiliate with, sort of a leftist political ideology versus the right. And he said, as far as the social sciences, he said the only one that isn't really that way is economics. He said so. Now he said that it's still kind of left leaning, but it's not quite that bad there. But every place else, like you're saying, in English class, you were lucky to find one. It's amazing.
So you're attending college in Texas, Gadai?
Yes. So
can I ask you which college you're going to?
I'm going to University of Houston, and before that, I was doing community college in California. So I completed an associate's. I was planning to go to university in California, but then many reasons I moved to Texas, and I started going here, completing my bachelor's.
Well, I just have to tell you, the University of Houston is one of my alma maters, but that's good to know.
Oh, wonderful! Uh,
Yeah.
mm, I'm surprised.
Well, Gadai, what's it like being a student and associating with other students on campus? Do you find that most of them, even in Houston, lean left, or is it a kind of is it a hostile environment for somebody with liberty ideas? Just curious.
Uh, I will say that comparing California and Texas, Houston, the students are still left leaning, but they're not going to be upset because they're used to seeing right leaning people. So they're not like upset as soon as they hear, "Oh, you don't think healthcare should be free? You're a fascist." There you go. So in that sense, they're a little bit more docile. Unfortunately, the majority of students are still left leaning, but I would say it's, instead of it being 90 to 90%, I would say it's about 70%. And
Okay.
again, most of them are more moderate, at least. So that's
Okay.
what Texas has going for it.
Okay,
Well,
well, that's good. This is a sad thing because a university should be a place where people's ideas are openly challenged and discussed. And right now
exactly.
in California, it's sort of like the trigger zone. If you say the wrong thing, then you may be up on some kind of charges
Yes.
for violence.
Harassment and everything else. Yes. Yes. So,
Yeah.
do you have, are there on the campus I'm speaking about, are there free speech issues that arise from time to time, like whether it was involving speakers or involving students or whatever? Are there issues like that arising?
Yes. So, one of the clubs that I associate with on campus, the first one that I actually joined was Young Conservatives of Texas. I ended up starting a Young Americans for Liberty campus chapter on campus, but they had a free speech issue, and they ended up bringing up a whole lawsuit about what, like, this microaggressions code that was on campus, and we ended up winning that lawsuit. But they tried to instill like this reporting system where you would report people for microaggressing upon you, which is ridiculous. Um,
Jeez.
but yes, yeah, they're trying. They really are trying, and they also tried shutting down some tabling events that we had. There are some problems on campus with the administration for sure.
Oh, I see. I see.
That's a good segue to talking about how what kind of organizations there are like on campus to help out uh, students who are uh, interested in finding out more about liberty. And so you mentioned Young Americans for Liberty. And did you want to tell us a little more about that and kind of the way that, maybe students can get involved, what kind of opportunities there are?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of organizations. My personal favorite is Young Americans for Liberty. It's a libertarian nationwide organization. They really help out with issues regarding free speech, COVID restrictions, everything else like that. They have been really helpful in organizing students in creating positive change around the country. And so, uh, so right now I'm actually working with them to get campus carry on campus. We have some restrictions still about concealed carry, which is something that I can imagine you can't even imagine in California, right? Carrying a gun on campus. Our restriction is that we need to have a license to carry before, and there's still like certain areas you can't go, and so that's what I'm trying to fight against, and that's something that I'm going to be working with Yal to do.
Oh, great. Great.
Just curious, this is kind of the first I really thought about carrying on campus, but is that something as a student, it would make you feel more secure having more people who are responsible that were armed on campus?
Oh, definitely. On our campus, if there's been so many different robberies and like attempted like just assaults, all of that, and so I feel afraid when I go out at night, to out in the parking lot towards the evening, that I feel like I have to get a permit now and start carrying, because if I don't, we've had really bad situations happen on campus. So that's why I want to make sure that I can carry on campus, and other students too.
Well, it's funny that you talk about that. I remember at the University of Houston, just off campus, there's Scott Street there, and that street was so horrible. I mean, if I got a flat tire at night coming from campus, I would not stop on that place at all. I mean, that place. I mean, where the University of Houston is, quite frankly, is a sort of dangerous place, quite frankly.
Yes.
But
Yeah, the campus itself is not very dangerous, but everywhere around it, as in the third ward in Houston, which is a very, very dangerous place to be in
yes,
Houston. So
yes,
yes, just for context, which is the reason why I want to get more campus carry, because students, they don't really feel safe on campus. We have some places that you can, call the police, or the campus police, one of those like emergency booths, but that still isn't safe. Like, you'd rather have an immediate solution that you can use in case you need it, instead of hoping that you can get to a booth on time and then the police will come on time.
exactly.
Yeah.
This is what these gun control idiots don't understand. It is true the police is there to protect and serve us, and they're supposed to protect us.
We hope.
We hope exactly. If they're not defunded by the same idiots. But what they don't understand is that the police comes after a crime is committed. They don't come while the crime is committed, while someone is holding a gun at you, or somebody's trying to rob you, and or trying, God forbid, rape you or something like that. They are not there at the time. They're only there after the fact. So you need something to protect yourself. And this is what these gun control idiots don't understand. That you need an immediate solution, just like you said.
Yeah. I think the famous phrase is, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away. You've already showed that the police
hours away.
yeah, hours. They'll sit on their butts for an hour and do nothing.
Yeah, only arm's length, but yet hours away. Well, Gadai, one of the things I wanted to talk to you about a little bit too is you told us a little bit about your efforts in helping to organize for liberty and as far as campaigns go. And so I guess one of the organizations maybe we could get up on the screen is Americans for Prosperity, and they have an action group that allows you to that helps to organize you guys to go door to door. Did you want to tell us a little bit about that? Because that'd probably be fascinating for some of our listeners.
Yes, so there are many political action organizations that you can join, but Americans for Prosperity Action is one of the organizations that I work with. We knock on doors for liberty candidates. We host events, and so the reason I do it personally is because I don't want Texas to become California.
Yes, please don't become California.
Yes, but yes, there's so many organizations, and I think that if you're a liberty-minded young person, you can really get involved with either Young Americans for Liberty, which has its own PAC that you can do door knocking for, or Americans for Prosperity. You just find something, and you can help out liberty candidates, knock for them, and try and get good change to happen. So.
Do they offer paid opportunities for people your age to do this, or is it mostly volunteer?
So it depends. So what I'm paid, and so I do a lot of other work besides door knocking. If you can't find a paid position, you can do volunteer, and I still recommend it. My philosophy is, if I wouldn't do it for free, I wouldn't do it for money. So that's what I like about this job, is that I would be doing it for free anyways. But yes, you can get paid positions with Americans for Prosperity, Young Americans for Liberty. They also get paid, but there's a lot of organizations that you can find, and you can get paid more than $15 an hour.
That's kind of funny, because I feel like that's what we're doing on this show. We're doing it for free. However, we would do it for money. At the moment, we're doing it for free because we're in California, and just like you, we just can't believe what we're seeing, and we've got to do something. We've got to say something, speak up, because man, it's just I just can't believe it. I've grown up here my whole life, and I cannot believe the way it's been changing over the past decade or so.
Well, I've been here 34 years, and the changes I've seen in those 34 years is unbelievable. But I was going to ask Gadai, you say that you go knock on doors with American for Prosperity. The midterm elections are not far away. I think maybe 90 days or so. I'm not sure. Somewhere in that area. Are you guys involved with that? Are you guys knocking on doors and doing campaigning work for certain candidates right now?
Yes. So most recently, we've been trying to encourage people to vote for Governor Abbott. So some people may think that Texas is a safe Republican state, although right now you can tell it's more of a swing state. It's been very close, and so that's why we've been out there trying to make sure that Abbott gets reelected. Of the two people, Abbott is, I think, much better than the other option, Beto. but
Oh
uh,
God,
but yes,
a disaster in the making. I'm sorry, but go ahead.
yes. But we're also going to be finding more liberty-minded candidates. Uh, and then we're going to start supporting them. So House candidates, anything like that, to make sure that we can get positive change for liberty in Texas.
Oh, that's good. That's good. That's really good.
Well, Gadai, one of the questions I want to ask you too, and this is maybe useful for anybody who's sitting out there and they think they want to do something for liberty, but what are some of the biggest challenges you've come into, whether it be, working for Americans for Prosperity Action, or, organizing with YAL? What's one of the biggest challenges you've seen?
It's really the political divisiveness, and so a lot of people now are so angry in politics. And I've been threatened with a gun before when I've been knocking doors.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been yelled at. My friend, he almost got in a fight when he was knocking doors. And so the left and to a lesser extent the right, they're very energized, but they're angry, and they want to put their anger out. And so when they see door knockers, they end up trying to release their anger. So unfortunately the country is very divided, and that's, I think, the biggest issue right now in terms of door knocking.
Well, as far as just to follow up on that, so with the challenges of door knocking, do you believe it makes a big difference? I mean, have you seen it make a difference?
I've had a lot of positive experiences as well. I've had a lot of people who were neutral on the issues. I've been able to convince them, like, hey, we should reduce taxes, we should reduce regulations, try and help with inflation. We should be concerned about these issues, and people were convinced. Some people, they just can't be convinced. But for those people, like I say, about the 30% of people that we knock on doors and talk with, they can be convinced. And that might seem like a small amount, but that's the amount of people that count. The people whose opinion won't change, they don't count, because a lot of people, they won't change their opinions anyways. The people who will change their opinions, that's what matters. And that's why I go out and knock on doors every day, basically.
Is that just a small percentage, you think, or is that a fairly significant percent that you're able to get good discussion with?
Uh, a lot of people, even if they can't change their opinions, they will at least talk with you, and that's at least a little bit of a learning experience. But the small amount of people, I'd say about 3-4% of the population, that's really what counts in elections, especially in close elections. The 3-4%, they're the ones that make the whole difference. If it's 50-50, the 3% can swing the election immensely. And so there is a real impact to knocking on doors, even if it is
We're
a small
almost at the end of our show. Do you got like a 10-second final parting shot of that you want to leave the audience with?
So I know I ran away from California to Texas, but I don't have anywhere else to run to. So we should stand and for liberty. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, it's time to make a stand for liberty. As
Indeed.
there's no place else to go. But thanks so much for joining us on this one, Gadai, and thank you all for joining us as well. And until the next time, stay free.
Yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.